Always a pleasure to be joined by our friend Stephen Ellis from Daily Faceoff, talking about this year's rookie class and some early returns on some fresh faces in the league. And Stephen, I want to start with the big dog, Matthew Schaefer, leading this rookie class in scoring, or at least tied for that top spot. He's looked really good early on. I've watched a couple of these games. The way he moves up and down the ice, the way he's keeping up with the pace of the NHL. We're early on, but are we talking about the next superstar on the blue line in the NHL?
I think so. And, when you look at the way this season started, I don't think anyone, especially myself, thought he'd be this good right away. He only played, if you count preseason games and exhibition and OHL regular season games, he only played about 30 games total last year. So for him to come in here with just a handful of exhibition games in the preseason this year and at the World Junior Summer Showcase, thinking he'd be playing 26 minutes in his second game, kind of nuts. But the fact he's been so good for the Islanders, he's got points in every single game so far, is incredible. And you look at it, still the Islanders are not a great team. They had to really grind to go and beat the Ottawa Senators. They lost their first 3 games. They beat the Oilers. I guess that was a really good effort from them. But overall, this felt like a situation here where Schaefer's been thrown in to do a lot more than I think he probably should have right away. But he's showing no signs of slowing down here. He's looking great. He's been the best Islander so far. So right now, he is the early Calder favorite. Shout out to him the way he's playing. Just so smart, so skilled, great skater. He's got everything you're looking for in a young defenseman right now.
You know what? He's been so impressive, right? And it's it's a big step for these guys, a big jump. But I'm going to switch out west here to Minnesota. Zeev Buium. Everything he's done so far, he's played a lot of minutes. What do you think about him that surprised you with his jump to the NHL now full-time this season, getting started right on training camp?
I think it's just been how good he's been on the power play. He's been really just making some fantastic plays. He's got a couple of multi-point games already. And I think I expected a lot of points out of him. This was a guy I was projecting for 55, 60 points as a defenseman. And so far he's on pace for 69. So he's doing quite well right now. But the fact that he's been just – whenever they need a goal, whenever they need a pass, whenever they need something out of him to make a great play, he's getting it done. He's so smart. Watching him play at the University of Denver the last couple of years, you saw in the way that he impacted every shift. It reminded me, like not totally stylistically, but the overall impact of what we saw Cale Makar do when he was playing in college hockey. He's just a guy that Denver always needed something to happen, and he was making it happen. And so far, playing 20 minutes a night, he's been able to do that really well with Minnesota. He is going to be a top pairing guy in the long term for this team, and they got to love what they're seeing right now.
Another Western team here in the Pacific Division, Bennett Seneca with the Anaheim Ducks is drawing some attention. Like, what is your take about his game so far, and where does his game suit like us moving forward? He's another 19-year-old in the league that's having success.
Yeah, you look at kind of where his draft rankings were a couple years ago, and he had a really solid rookie season in the OHL of 55 points, and he moved up to 68 the year after. But what was really important was just how different his game became. He was a much smaller player. I think he was under 6 foot when he was drafted to the OHL. He's 6'4" on 200 pounds now. Like, this dude's a menacing figure out there, and he really started to show that the last 2 years in the OHL. When you look at the fact that he's still OHL eligible, it always felt like he was going to be sent back down at some point, but he hasn't been. He's got 4 points in 5 games. He had a really good preseason, like a really good second half of the preseason specifically. Yeah, he hasn't got points in the last 2 games. The offense has kind of dried up there for Anaheim with just those 2 goals, but when they were thriving early on, he had 4 points in the first 3 games. So I think what you're seeing from him right now is a player that's playing with so much motivation. He's just built for the pro style game with that size, with that skill, with that speed. And I think Hockey Canada is looking here and saying, like, well, we kind of hope he trails off a bit so we can get him for the World Juniors. But the Anaheim Ducks got to be looking at this and saying, people criticized us for that number 3 pick a couple years ago, but it's looking pretty good right now.
Yeah, it's always funny when you see those high picks that in the moment are criticized. You even go back to Columbus, that way back with the Pierre-Luc Dubois pick, and everyone's calling him crazy. Then it was like, a year and a half into his career, everyone's like, oh, maybe they actually did know what they were doing there. Again, Seneca, Buium, and Schaefer, like, these are guys who came in with some amount of pedigree. And we talked, Hutz and I, earlier in the show about a guy like Emmett Finney in Detroit, a 7th-round pick from a couple years ago, who now it's like, whoa, like, he's jumped into the NHL and he's off to a flying start. Another guy who he's not the same kind of story as Finney, but I look at Oliver Kapanen in Montreal, Stephen, and like a 2nd-round pick from 2021. Like, this is a guy who was drafted 4 years ago now, and he played in Legia, he played in Sweden, he had a cup of coffee last year, But now he's coming out like this guy's playing middle 6 minutes for the Habs. He's got 3 goals on the year. How surprised are you at the impact he's having 4 years after he was drafted?
Well, I tweeted over the summer that Oliver Kapanen was going to be a guy that is going to make a big impact in the NHL. And now I didn't think he'd have 3 goals at this point of the season, but what we're seeing from him is this guy who can play a second or third line role and be really good at it. And he really came alive a couple years ago at the World Championship where he had 6 goals in 8 games with Finland. And at the time he was, still a young player. I think he was only 20, 21 years old. And not many people knew what type of impact he was going to have, but he looked really good in the Finnish Pro League. Then last year he starts in the NHL, doesn't produce a lot, doesn't play a ton, goes to Sweden, looks fantastic. So all the signs at every level show that this guy can produce, but that's not really his game. It's more about being this player that can get to the front of the net, use his, he's 6'1", but it feels like he plays a bit bigger at points because he does take a lot of space up. He's always moving, always trying to find his line mates, and it doesn't seem to matter who he plays with. He's making something happen. But in particular, he is playing 5 and Davidoff right now, and it's when you got a guy like that with the skill, obviously you're going to be able to put some points on the board. But what Kapanen's doing is he's so reliable. He's got a really good two-way game. And you look at the long-term future for him, maybe he's your 4th-line center because you've got Owen Beck coming up. You've got Michael Haig coming up. You already got Suzuki. So then now you're looking at this, okay, so what type of role does Kapanen fit? Maybe he does fall down farther in the lineup. But if he is your number 4 center, I predict he could be one of the best 4th-line centers in the NHL. Still too early because he is playing that 2nd-line role right now. But I think the Habs fans are looking at this and saying, this guy was a 2nd-round pick. We're really happy with his development right now. And the way he's playing, he's making the team better every single night.
Prospect expert, associate editor at dailyfaceoff.com, Stephen Ellis. Appreciate you popping on. We'll chat again next week.
Thanks so much.
Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Merrick, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.